Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Lana Zach. We continue to follow breaking news. Police on the scene of a shooting at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas campus. Officers have tweeted that the suspect has been located and is now dead. They maintain, though, that this is an active investigation. They are asking people to avoid the area. Authorities say that there appears to be multiple victims. We've seen dozens of police officers rush to the scene and students rushing from it. CBS News Chief National Affairs and Justice correspondent Jeff Pegues joins us now. Jeff, obviously this is still a breaking news situation. We are still sorting out many of the details. What have we learned so far?
Well, it looks like, Lana, let's just leave it at multiple people transported to area hospitals. Don't have a confirmed number at this time. Don't know whether they are dead or wounded. So we're still waiting on clarity for that. But as you can see from the images that we have from Las Vegas, it's a pretty active scene right now with multiple members of law enforcement showing up at the scene. You have the police tape sealing off part of the area. You have ambulances and police vehicles still responding to the scene. And what we expect is that the FBI and ATF, as they do in many of these active shooter situations, they will be showing up to help coordinate the investigation as well. But as you noted, it's still early, and we're just now seeing some of these images of people being evacuated from the scene. Again, if you're just joining us, this is a college campus, so what you're going to have are students and parents alike concerned about safety issues on this campus after getting word of this active shooter situation. As you know, Lana, the alleged suspect is now deceased, according to Las Vegas police. And in situations like these, there are always concerns that there could be another shooter on the loose. However, we have not heard that information at this time. So investigators seem to have the situation under control, but obviously it is still unfolding.
And we also know, I'm going to note for our viewers that this is outside of the Lee Business School, which is also near the student union. Jeff, stay with us. I want to bring in now Charles Marino. He's a former Homeland Security Department advisor and a former Secret Service special agent. Charles, talk to us about how police respond to these sort of active shooting situations. We were watching as students, faculty, people in the area were being escorted by authorities with their hands raised as authorities are trying to clear these areas. What's happening right there on the ground?
Well, you saw a very initial large police response, no doubt, going to any sounds of gunfire if those sounds were still occurring. Look, especially after incidents like Uvalde, where law enforcement departments have been criticized for taking too long to mitigate these threats. A department like the Las Vegas Police Department, which is highly trained, immediately probably went in very aggressively to stop the threat, stop the shooting, therefore stop the killing if any of that had happened. What I can tell you is this campus layout is not uncommon throughout the United States, and this is what has families and parents concerned, and students as well. It's a part of the city, and that is, you don't have this secure bubble of a campus community. You have buildings scattered about, and let's face it, access is not strictly enforced in these campuses. These are open campuses. Where many people can freely come and go into these buildings. So the security measures that are in place, like access control, entry, et cetera, are not entirely foolproof, unfortunately.
Jeff, join us in this conversation because we have information now. CBS News can confirm that the ATF and the FBI are offering their assistance with the shooter deceased, as Las Vegas Metro Police Department has confirmed for us. What would be the next steps in the investigation, and how will the federal authorities be able to help?
Well, this has become, unfortunately, because these situations have become so common over the last several years, but to have the FBI and the ATF participating in, perhaps leading investigations is a huge help to local police who already have enough on their plate. But when the FBI and ATF come in, it is the FBI that can help coordinate press conferences, that can help coordinate victim assistance programs, and most importantly, perhaps, gather and sort through the evidence that they may find at the scene. As far as the ATF is concerned, obviously they are the agency that can trace the origin of the weapon, who purchased the weapon, when was it purchased, and in addition to that, examine any shell casings that they might find in the area. So this is the common practice, unfortunately, when you have these active shooter investigations. It is more effective for law enforcement if you have cooperation across local, state, and federal partners, and they've become very good at that. They've become very adept at that, and oftentimes some of these investigations end up across state lines, and that's where the FBI and ATF can come in and help with their experience in tracking down suspects and tracing the origins of these weapons. With this investigation, as it's unfolding and as we're looking at these images, you know, what investigators will ask is, why did this person target this location? Could it be a student? Could it be someone familiar with this location? In addition to that, as you all know, there are surveillance cameras all over the place, and in places that you might not expect them to be. And so one of the first things that investigators will do is look at the surveillance tape as quickly as possible, try to figure out how this all unfolded. Was there a door that this suspect accessed? Or was the suspect, was that person already in the facility? So there are a lot of questions, as you might imagine, that need to be answered. But the most comforting thing, I think, not only for students, but also for parents out there who may know someone on this campus, is that investigators are very good at tracking down a potential threat and mitigating any kind of loss of life or injuries that may accumulate.
And as you say, Jeff, they are very, unfortunately, well-trained at this point. You and I both covered that shooting in Mandalay Bay Casino in Las Vegas in 2017. Know that you were all over that. That was one of the worst shootings in U.S. history taking place there in Las Vegas. Charles, let's talk a little bit more about something that Jeff was saying about the shooter being able to access these buildings. This is a major university. I believe that the population is somewhere around 28,000. It's in Las Vegas, one of the iconic big cities in America. How difficult is it to try and neutralize threats like that when there are so many people around? And not that we know, I just want to caution, not that we know how the shooter ended up dying.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, these threats can emerge on any type of these campuses that we see throughout the United States. Again, as I said earlier, they're very part of the communities in which they exist. They're scattered about. So law enforcement has to hope that they're being given accurate information where the event is occurring, so that they can respond effectively and efficiently to mitigate the threat. You know, you brought up the federal agencies working with state and locals. Look, these are not relationships that are created in a crisis. These are long-lasting relationships, federal agencies working with local agencies to provide whatever assistance they can. But let's not forget what the FBI's mission is. They also want to determine if this has any nexus to terrorism. So along with identifying who the shooter was, and the long list of possible motives, one of those motives possibly being in association to terrorism. So that's why they're also a part of the investigation. And the ATF, of course, brings their vast expertise in firearms identification to then begin the investigative process on the weapon that was used and where it became. Was it legally purchased? Was it stolen? Et cetera. But I can tell you, these facilities are very hard to protect. Campus security directors will tell you that. Access is needed for students, professors, the list goes on. And there are a lot of things that take place, like piggybacking, where doors are held open, and sometimes unknown people are able to enter the location. But we don't know if this was somebody affiliated with the school. What we do know is we are seeing these types of events increase at record paces, and we own the record in the world for mass shootings, and that's not a good record list to be on.
No, and you raise so many good points, Charles. Among them, that these have become so commonplace. The idea that this could be connected to terrorism in any sort of global capacity was, I confess, not one that even entered into my mindset, because school shootings, mass shootings in this country, unfortunately, are more common than they are anyplace else in the world. Jeff, obviously, motive is going to be something that investigators, the Department of Homeland Security is going to be looking at. How do the authorities try and figure out motive?
In part by looking at some of the surveillance tape that they might gather in the next few hours. Also, did the suspect say anything to people in that location before he or she started firing? But Charles also makes a good point about whether there is a terrorism nexus to this incident. At this time, we have no information that says that it is. However, think about what happened here in Washington yesterday with FBI Director Christopher Wray on the Hill saying, in essence, that the lights are blinking this holiday season, and not the Christmas lights, the warning lights, because of the war in the Middle East, because of some of the chatter that they've seen online, people intent on causing harm to Americans here in the homeland. And so law enforcement, especially federal law enforcement, is paying attention to what they're seeing on social media, and that's another issue here. Was this person who is now deceased active on social media? So you try to get as close and seize as many personal devices, whether it's a phone, whether it's a computer, to see if the suspect, who according to our sources is now dead, was communicating with anyone before this incident happened. Was there a note? Were there threats to the school? So there is a lot of legwork and old-fashioned police work that investigators have to do to figure out that motive. It's unusual for them to come up with a motive this early in the investigation. That will likely take time. But what I expect to happen in the next 30 minutes, maybe a couple of hours, is that you have a press conference informing the public that hopefully there is no threat ongoing to the public. We'll have to see about that. But there is a lot of work to do as far as the investigation is concerned and as far as determining a motive is concerned.
Absolutely. This is still very much a breaking news situation. We are bringing you the best information that we have as we have it, as well as the context and insight from people who have been covering this from different angles in their careers. On your point, Jeff, I just wanted to say the LVMPD sheriff is expected to give an update in about 10 to 15 minutes. We'll, of course, bring any information that we have on that to our viewers. In the meantime, I want to play a little bit of sound that we have, reaction from someone who was there to one of our a local station in the area. Can we play that, please?
Just after I got out, I saw another report that said that there was another shots fired in the student union, so I was very lucky to get out of there. It was a scary situation. I was all by myself in the restroom.
Talk a little bit about the the emotion that was going through you at the time, like confusion, fear?
Oh,
What were you
definitely
thinking?
fear, yeah. I've only seen stuff like this happen in the movies or in the news elsewhere. I never thought it would happen here in my own community. So it was definitely terrifying. I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh, well, I can't get out of the restroom. If I stay here, they could come in. I was like, oh, I just didn't know what to do. But I just stayed, and fortunately, the police came in and, took me out of safety.
How long were you inside when all of this happened?
Probably like a good 20 minutes. Just terrified. I didn't know what to do.
And now that you're been able to step back a little bit and process what's going on, what is running through your mind about everything that you have witnessed and that we went through?
Well, honestly, I'm just like, well, what drove someone to do this? We all just come here to get an education, get a career. And like, I don't know if it was an altercation or if it was planned or something, but it's just scary, man. I wouldn't want anyone to go through this. And I can't even imagine those that...
What would lead somebody to do this? Exactly the questions that we have been discussing now with Jeff Pegues and Charles Marino. Charles, you hear that eyewitness to the event taking place. He didn't see shooting happening, but he was among the people who was told to get out. What strikes you hearing him?
Yeah, we're hearing from somebody that followed the run, hide, fight methodology, and he was in the hide stage. He found a bathroom to hunker down in and stayed there until he felt he was safe, making the right decision not to come out and make sure that he was contained within that room, staying hidden away from the shooter. But look, this is tragic for students to have to worry about. As they're getting ready to end school to go on holiday break. They're taking finals. I teach at a university. I know exactly how busy these students are and what their minds should be focused on, and that is their academics, not shootings like this occurring on their campuses. And like I said, it's very hard to mitigate. But as a society, we need to start enacting some real solutions here to prevent this, because schools are becoming these high value targets in terms of the numbers. And it's the pathway of least resistance, unfortunately, especially these college campuses for active shooters. And that's where they're going to go to conduct these types of acts. They're going to go the pathway of least resistance, where they're less inclined to engage with security or law enforcement while attempting to commit this act. And we need to change that narrative. We need to instill more deterrence at these locations and in society in general to prevent these types of acts from taking place. But again, another tragic example at a location that unfortunately suffered consequences of which we have no full knowledge of yet at the hands of violence.
Jeff, I'm going to give you the last word, following on what Charles was saying about high-value targets and how it is so easy for these shooters with an agenda, mistakenly, misguidedly, to try and seek out people, in some cases, that have nothing to do with what they're feeling so much anger about. How in the world does our country overcome what is becoming something that is far too commonplace?
Well, it's a very good question, and I wish I had the answer after covering so many of these shootings, mass shootings with high death tolls. It's almost deja vu all over again, because you have the shooting, then you have politicians and local officials standing up and talking about what's going to change, but nothing really changes. There's a lot of talk, but very little action. Back in the day when these things first started happening, we talk about the difference between a soft target and a hard target, but what we're seeing now is that everywhere, no matter where you are, is a soft target. There are vulnerabilities all over the place, and especially when you have the access to weapons that Americans have. Because this is what we're seeing over and over again. In a lot of these situations, the weapons that are being used are similar. You then have copycat incidents. So what we expect to hear in the next several hours and over the coming days is people in Nevada calling for some sort of change, but there is so much disagreement and such a lack of consensus on these issues that, I'll be surprised if anything changes.
Jeff Pegues, Charles Marino, thank you both.